The other book that you wrote, which sold incredibly, incredibly well, is this book about smart couples finish rich. That's the title. Smart Couples Finish Rich. 9 Steps to Creating a Rich Future for You and Your Partner. As it relates to how rich or wealthy you become, the person you choose and the way that you configure that relationship, how consequential is that?
It's everything.
Really?
It can be everything. Why?
You're married?
I'm married.
Yeah.
So why can it be everything? Because here's what happens in the real world, Stephen. Often we marry our financial opposite. So I always joke, like I used to do a lot of seminars for couples, and I'd say there's 2 types of people that are born in the world. One person comes out literally with a calculator and they're born to track where all the money goes, and they love to budget and they're super excited about investing. That's one kind of person. The other kind of person loves to shop, loves to spend money. Almost inevitably, those 2 people hook up. Now, sometimes 2 people who like to spend money marry. That's a disaster because they end up broke. So now what do you do about the couple that's got their financial opposites? That's what led to Smart Couples Finish Rich. Because if you are married to your financial opposite, you will fight about money all the time. And fights about money are what lead to divorce. They're the number 1 cause of divorce. The real key in what I've been teaching now for over 2 decades is the way you get couples on the same page when it comes to money is you start with your values. So you look at what do you really value most together as a couple. You put the money aside for a second. You go through your values. What's most important to you? What do you really care about? You talk about your values. And then you build a financial plan around what's really most important to you.
You say that there's 6 worst money mistakes that couples make. And the first of those is not deciding who is responsible for what.
Yeah. So often in a relationship, one person pays the bills. Okay. Who's managing the money? Now, I used to say in every household there should be at least one person that's paying the bills, and if the other person is managing the money, meaning that they're in charge of the investments, that you still get together and go through it. As I've gotten older, I've really realized how important this is because I go back to the fact that the average age is 59. Average age of widowhood is 59. I'm 59 now. I've had 3 best friends already pass away, all men, and they passed away before they were 57. So all these statistics that I talk about, I'm seeing them come true. And I will tell, especially the women, hear me on this loud and clear, but this is important for the men too. The question you need, this is hard to hear. The question you have to ask yourself is if your partner died today, what would you need to know about the finances? And the answer is everything. Now, what does that mean, everything? That means you would need to know, where is the money? Does he have money in an old 401k plan? Does he have money in an IRA account? Does he have money in a bank account? What are the passwords to get into the accounts? Where's the will? 6 out of 10 people listening to us today don't have a will. You have to have a will.
At any age.
At any age. Especially if you're in a relationship, you have to have a will. If you have kids, you have to have a will. Is there life insurance? So many people today who have children don't have life insurance and they don't have assets. You should at least get $1 million to $2 million term policy. Super inexpensive. Protect your family. You have to run the drill, right? Like we got on a plane, we flew here today. The first thing they do on a plane before you take off is they talk to you about what to do in case of emergency purposes. The mask's going to come down. You're going to put it on your face. Okay. You get on a cruise boat. The first thing you do is talk about what you're going to do if the cruise boat's got a problem. You're going to go get in these emergency boats. You need to run the fire drill for your family on finances. I almost died, like it's now been 4 years ago. My wife found me face down, passed out. I was brought to the hospital in Florence. I was in a coma for 4 days. I was in the hospital for 17. I had meningitis. When I came out of, just like a movie, I'm laying down in the hospital. Doctor's looking over me. Doctor says, "Do you know what your name is?" I said, "It's David." He says, "Very good." He says, "Your last name is?" I said, "It's Bach." He says, "Do you know where you are?" I go, yeah, I'm in Milan. I just had an ankle surgery because I had had an ankle surgery 2 weeks prior, 2 weeks before that. And he says, no, you're in Santa Maria Novella. You're in the ICU. We're treating you right now for meningitis. But now that you've opened up your eyes, you're going to be okay. You're safe now. And then they brought my wife in. They said, do you know what her name is? And I made a joke. I said, this is Rebecca. She was like, who? And I go, honey, I can still be a smartass in the hospital. It's Alacia. And she starts screaming and yelling. And she's like, oh my God, he's okay. But Stephen, the truth was I wasn't okay. Because when you get meningitis, you get brain swelling. So I couldn't remember things. I couldn't remember my passwords to the bank account. I didn't know the passwords to my phone number anymore, to my phone. One of the things I did when I came out of the hospital, because I always manage the money, is I said to my wife, we're going to hire a financial advisor, and you have to be involved in what's going on. We actually had yesterday our annual account review. Because I tell couples, you got to have an annual account review, either together, and if you have a financial advisor, at a minimum with your financial advisor. And I didn't want to cancel the appointment because even though you guys invited me to come here, I'm like, I'm keeping the appointment. We'll fly here to flew this morning. And so, again, having worked at Morgan Stanley for 9 years and been a financial advisor, I've seen too many couples not do this, including, sadly, Stephen, my dad just recently passed away. And my dad was in the money management business his whole life. So he managed the money. And my mom was not involved. And when my dad passed away, we had to, just like my book, step in and help my mom with everything. Now, she's lucky. She's got 2 kids in the business. But as she did, my mom was just a ripe, waiting example of somebody who could be taken advantage of. So the time to learn about money is before there's a problem. If you took Smart Couples Finish Rich, honestly, Stephen, it's designed to be a roadmap for 2 people together, where you can sit down and go through this book chapter by chapter together, starting with just organizing your financial information, putting everything into file folders. It starts the conversation. And then talking about your values, then talking about your dreams, then going into, well, what do you want to share? You have a very I don't know all your stuff, but I've followed you for years. As I told you, I'm a fan of yours. I've got your book. I've watched your podcast. I've listened to you now for years. As your business is expanding, your life is getting more complicated. God forbid something happens to you tomorrow.
Yeah, it'd be a fucking nightmare.
And she's your fiance.
Yeah.
She wouldn't even know where to start. And I don't know if she would know who to call. So it's a worthwhile conversation. Like, I just had this guy on the show, and I don't know, maybe we really need to involve you a little bit.
I was just looking at some of the data here, and it says that in terms of income ignorance, according to a 2021 study by Fidelity Investments, nearly 40% of couples could not even identify how much their partner earned. It says, in terms of financial infidelity, surveys from Bankrate and creditcards.com consistently find that up to 40% of adults share that they have kept financial secrets, which is hiding cash, hiding bank statements, and hiding debts that they have from their romantic partner. So that's almost half. And you pointed at this earlier on, which is the CFO dynamic. In many households, one spouse acts as the chief financial officer, and research indicates that roughly 50% of couples have a non-managing spouse who has little to no idea how much money the family have total. They don't know where it is, and they don't know the passwords.
It can sound scary. It can sound intimidating. And yet I can tell you every day, people who actually kind of do this basic stuff that we've talked about, once you start to do it, you feel a lot better. You feel better instantly. You don't have to go from having no savings to having $1 million to feel better. If you just start automatically saving some money, paying yourself first, the moment you make that decision, you'll feel better. You go and you turn off some subscription fees like you just looked at. The moment you do that, you'll feel better. It's literally like a financial muscle. You start to build this financial muscle when you start to take action. It is action that changes your life. I always say, I wrote all these books. If a person buys a book, reads it, and doesn't do anything, then I was a form of entertainment. If you listen to a podcast on money and you don't do something, then we were, again, a form of entertainment. My purpose for doing this podcast today, why I got on a plane and flew out here immediately to do this with you, was I want to try to change somebody's life today. I've always taken the approach of like, I want to change a person's life, one person at a time. And sometimes the things I share are hard to hear, but I also know they wake people up. You had this great quote in this book. I was showing this today to my son. I'm holding, for those of you who can't see me, I'm holding Stephen's book, A Diary of the CEO, which has also sold millions of copies. And this is your quote on page 233. I wonder if you remember your quotes, because sometimes you forget them, right? If you want long-term success in business, relationships, and life, you have to get better at accepting uncomfortable truths as fast as possible. When you refuse to accept an uncomfortable truth, you are choosing to accept an uncomfortable future. The one thing that wasn't in this quote was money. And everything we're talking about is, I'm like, you're going to work 90,000 hours over your lifetime. If you don't pay yourself first and you have nothing to show for it, the uncomfortable truth is you will be broke. We haven't talked about global issues and government issues and debt. Why do you have to take care of yourself financially right now more than ever before? Because the future is about to radically change. And I will talk out of both sides of my mouth for a second. Number one, I believe the next 10 years, hands down, will be the greatest opportunity to build wealth in our lifetime. AI is going to create so much wealth that we've never seen anything like it. Like when you look at the returns in the stock market from last year, they're a result of AI. What's happening is AI is making companies more profitable and more productive than they've ever been. The downside is people are losing their jobs, right? You've had people on their show, including Tony Robbins, talking about this, and there are going to be a lot more of those job losses. So some people are going to get much wealthier, and then a whole lot of other people are going to have a challenge. But there's another problem that we're not talking enough about, and that is the safety nets of governments. All these safety nets that were created in the US, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, unemployment. You can go through every single country. All of these things are called entitlement programs, which is a fancy word for saying the government made a promise to you. And a whole lot of people are dependent on that promise. And there's not enough money to pay for those promises. So like in the US, you take Social Security. The average Social Security check right now is $1,900. Not a lot of money, but about 60 million Americans depend on that amount of money. In the US, Social Security, this is government data, not me. You can do all this stuff online. The government is telling us that in 2033, that's around the corner, that Social Security is going to be underfunded and they're going to have to cut the benefits. Now, what they're talking about is cutting the benefits by 20%. You have a lot of Americans that's going to be a real problem for. Every country's got this issue because people are living longer, governments have more debt than they've ever had. I am here to tell you, it's a cliche term, but no one's coming to save you. You're going to have to save yourself, and you're going to have to take your personal financial well-being more seriously now than ever before. And if you do, you will be in great shape. If you don't, you will be dependent on a system that is buckling.
One of the things in I think it's the 6th point of the 6 things that couples get wrong is waiting too long to pay off the mortgage. What do you mean by that? I actually had a friend contact me and ask this. They said, Stephen, I've got some cash that's been given to me, I think through an inheritance. Should I pay off my mortgage or should I go invest in the stock market, in the S&P 500 or something else?
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to say because I'm not a financial advisor.
So if you called me up and you said, David, what should I do? I'd go, Stephen, what's the rate on your mortgage? Then you'd say, well, David, I got a mortgage 5 years ago and it's 2.5%. And I'd say, okay, well, that's a really low rate, Stephen. You know what? You can put the money in a money market account right now and make more than that. So maybe you don't need to rush to pay it off as fast as possible. But if you've got a mortgage that's 6 or 7 or 8%, it's a no-brainer. The biggest thing I can tell you about paying down your mortgage early is actually really simple. Here's ways to do it. If you make one extra payment a year on a mortgage, you'll take a 30-year mortgage and you'll pay it off, depends on the rate, 5, 6, 7 years sooner. So you can go online, you can run a calculator. Today, you don't even need calculators. You just run the question. You put in your mortgage. You tell Gemini, here's the size of my mortgage. Here's my mortgage payment. If I make an extra payment a year, how many years faster will I pay it off? And how much will I save? And you'll see the number. When people see the number in black and white, they go, oh, I've got to do that. Now, here's the key. Make that payment automatic. The easiest way you make your payment automatic is either make one extra payment at the end of the year or take your mortgage payment and increase it by 10%. So if your mortgage payment is $1,000, make an $1,100 a month mortgage payment and tell the bank you want to add that to the principal. When people do that, they need to make sure, though, that money is actually paying down the principal. And another way to do that is a biweekly mortgage payment plan, where you take your mortgage, you split it in half, you pay half every 2 weeks. That'll also pay your mortgage off early.
Prenuptial agreements. I'm engaged.
Yep.
Should I be getting a prenup?
So I would tell anyone who's getting married, number one, if your incomes are not the same, you should get a prenup. Number two, if you both have good incomes, you should get a prenup. Number three, if you're in your 30s, you should get a prenup. You would never go into a business without a contract. Marriage is the ultimate contract. It just is. Now, is it romantic to do a prenuptial agreement? No. Does one person in the relationship typically not like doing a prenup? Yes. I know a lot of women today who want prenups and the husbands don't want them. It's whoever's making the money. But I will say this about prenups. You need a lawyer, she needs a lawyer. You cannot go and do a prenup right before you get married. When people do that, those prenups get thrown out the window because they will claim and say and have an argument for, I was under extremely undue influence to sign this agreement before the wedding. And those agreements get thrown out, even if there's disclaimer language. And both of you need attorneys. And prenuptial agreements can often be like a negotiation. And you can learn a lot about your partner that it's not always pretty. I'm not saying you, but one can learn a lot about their partner that's not always pretty when you do a prenuptial agreement. And once the prenuptial agreement is done, if it's a reasonable prenuptial agreement, it goes in a file. It doesn't get looked at again. And it won't matter unless the day comes that you need to pull it out. And that's for a first-time marriage. Okay, you're a second-time marriage or a third-time marriage, and you've got kids and custody issues and support for your first wife, you definitely need a prenup.
What is the most important thing we should have talked about that we didn't talk about?
Stephen, we've talked a lot about money today, but money's just a tool. So what we actually haven't got to talk a lot about is using money just to free yourself to live your best life. And you don't have to have money to live your best life. Again, money is just a tool. So what's most important in life? I'm going to say things that people know. Health. I started following you because of all the shows you did on health. Love. People hold on to love way too much. Gratitude. Being consistently grateful for the life you have. Friendship. Loving your friends fully. And the last thing is fun. I think people go through life and at some point they stop designing their life. My grandmother used to say, you got to dream it, design it, and do it. And she's like, and you're going to run out of time. So what I would say to anybody is like, you've got this one beautiful moment in time where you're here. What do you want? And start working on that today.
You listened to the episode with Tony Robbins, though.
Yeah.
You've referenced him several times in this conversation.
If someone were to ask me who is the greatest mentor and the greatest influence in my life besides my grandmother and my father, it's Tony Robbins. So I went to Tony Robbins seminars in the early 90s, back in the day when he had an infomercial with audio cassettes. And I went to a program that he taught in Hawaii. He had this big hotel called the Waikoloa. And he did an exercise. This is it's like I remember like this was yesterday. He said to the room we were in, and there were, 1,000 of us in this room. He said, How many of you have a dream that you're not working on? And we all had dreams. And so he got us into a peak state, and he had us work on our dreams. And then he asked the question, how many of you think you're going to be alive in 10 years? Everyone's like, yeah, I'm going to be alive in 10 years. He's like, great, so I got a question for you. Are you going to be alive in 10 years, having worked on your dream, hopefully gotten it, right? Done all the things I've taught you to do, model the masters, got yourself in peak state, learn the pattern recognition. Have you gotten 10 years older, having gone through dreams and maybe got it? Or did you just get 10 years older and you let your dream die? You let your dream die. And he just let that sit. And then he had us go off in groups of 10 and share our individual dream. So we'd all written it down on paper. So I shared that my dream, from this young kid, financial advisor, I'm a guy, I shared my dream was to write a book called Smart Women Finish Rich and teach 1 million women to be smart with money so they could protect themselves, teach their kids, and help their family. My heart's pounding, Stephen. I'm sharing this idea with 10 strangers, and then we go back into the room. And he's like, how'd that go? Are you guys all ready? He gets us back in a peak state. 10 minutes later, a woman comes, taps me on the shoulder, and she says, I just heard about your dream. My name's Vicky. I've worked on Tony's last 2 books. If you want to do your book, you're going to need a book proposal. You've done books, you know this. She's like, I can help you write a book proposal. I hired her. I started working on that book proposal. Later, I would go after the same agent that Tony has, Jan Miller. She'd become my agent. He'd write a cover letter. I'd get a book deal, and I'd start working to help millions of people. It started at a Tony Robbins seminar. And I go back to my grandmother, right? Dream it, design it, and do it. He gave me the life skills to do that. And I will tell you something about Tony because you see Tony on all these shows and people go, is Tony the real deal? Stephen, if I was with you and I send Tony a text, and Tony has a lot of friends like this, Tony gets right back to me. Tony's the real deal. I just went to Germany and took my older son, Jack, who's 22, to see him do UPW in September. Could bring tears to my eyes. Because I wanted Jack to have the experience without me there. So he was, bless Tony, sitting in the front row. I came in on day 3 when he was in the peak state. And I came in and I watched him. I was basically his age. And I thought, God, I went in and I gave him a hug. And I'm like, you just don't even know. This experience that you're seeing, what you're learning today, if you use this stuff, it will change your life. That's the power of Tony. And people go, whatever it is, your podcast, your events, Tony's events, my books, we're just catalysts. But God gave you a seed and a dream. And when we're the catalyst for look, go do this, listen to that voice. Whoever your God is, that soul that you hear yourself saying, I have a dream. If I only had 10 years left to live, I would really hate to die with that dream inside me. That's the dream you go work on.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.